Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is week 5 of the Heckman Contract webinar series, and today we will be looking at exploring alternate markets. Before we get going, a couple of reminders. First of all, this webinar will be posted to our website later today. So if you want to go back and review anything or share it with a colleague, a client, a friend, you can find it on our website by going to the resources tab and the download link. And you will find all of these webinars there as well. The other reminder is I have all of you on mute. That's just to cut down on the background noise and interference that often accompanies group meetings like this. So if you have a question, simply raise your hand. There's a raise your hand icon option there, or just write in your question in the chat bar, and we'll review all of those questions at the end, just to try to keep the flow of the webinar going. So first of all, talking about alternate markets, I want to emphasize the fact that Heckman Contract is heavily invested in the senior living marketplace for good reason. All of the macro demographic data is there to support the fact that this is a continually growing market segment. As the population continues to age, that's not going to change. Roughly 85 to 90% of our business comes from the senior living market segment. And we continue to emphasize that in most of our marketing materials and sales efforts. However, I think it's safe to assume with the current pandemic and the fact that 1 out of 5 deaths are occurring at nursing homes, retirement communities, and assisted living centers, with some states reporting as many as half of the deaths coming from those locations. I think it's safe to assume that there will be a period of time in the near term where the industry will be reviewing protocols, procedures, and working to regain the trust and confidence of residents and families. So with that in mind, we thought it may be prudent to consider some alternate markets for our products so that when we come through the other side of this pandemic, we'll be in a better position. So some of these markets include things like corporate environments, and we'll drill down into some of these in a little more detail. Certainly not all of them, but enough to kind of get the point across here. I think that there are plenty of opportunities to promote and specify Heckman Contract in markets outside of senior living. Corporate environments, we're all familiar with the term residential, but country clubs, luxury apartment and condos where they have common areas, student housing, library centers, on and on and on. You can see this is a pretty exhaustive list. And like I said, we'll explore a couple of them in more detail. I also want you just to kind of remember this photo because we'll come back to that later on as we go through. So when considering these alternate markets, we took a moment to think about the product features and those characteristics that are important to a senior living environment, and considered where those same features and benefits might also play into these other markets. And so you'll see there's some commonality in this, in the terms of, you know, needing a residential looking piece of furniture that is built for the rigors of a commercial environment. Mortise and tenon construction, moisture barriers, moisture decks, clean out seats, antimicrobial. That's going to be, I believe, a very important feature moving forward, even outside of healthcare. Obviously, anywhere you have groups of people congregating, I think that antimicrobial is going to be of interest for quite some time, if not forever. So all of our finishes, our wood finishes, offer antimicrobial agents. And as you all know, many fabrics out there like Krypton and things like that offer similar options. Cleanability is going to be another important feature in general. And of course, with our Thermal Shield seamless laminate furniture, you can clean that with harsh chemicals repeatedly without any moisture penetration or damage to the finishes. So when you look at this list of features that are that are found in Heckman Furniture, I think it's easy to see that the leap to some of these alternate markets is not a big one to make. So just kind of looking at the corporate world first, you know, over the years, last 30 years or so, there's been kind of a ping pong of, you know, going from the old private office to cubicles to open office to work from home. In fact, in the middle 2010s, there was a big push for people to telecommute, work from home. And interestingly, Marissa Mayer, who was the CEO of Yahoo back in 2013, a working mother herself, changed Yahoo's work policy from work at home to pretty much everybody had to find an office to come into. And that seemed to kind of start a whole movement to bringing people back into the office. And now, of course, we're living through a time of just the opposite. So the point is the blurring of lines between work and home have continued over the last decade to 15 years. And so we're seeing more traditional office furniture finding its way into the home, you know, height adjustable tables, expensive ergonomic chairs, things like that, that you typically would have found only in an office. And likewise, we're seeing more residential furniture finding its way into the corporate environment. I just grabbed a couple photos I found on Google, and by the way, doing a Google search for images of Residential, you find a ton of stuff there. So Safeco Insurance up here in the upper left, you can see the wingback chairs, very residential look, non-institutional. Sun Communities in Southfield, Michigan, the same basic idea there. And so this is where I think you see companies like Herman Miller engaging with Design Within Reach, and Steelcase engaging with companies like West Elm. It gives them an option and access to those residential type furnishings that can help them build out and complete a corporate project. So some of the areas where we can touch obviously are lobbies and common areas, breakout rooms, conference and training rooms, executive offices, and general client spaces. Clubhouses is another big opportunity area for all of us. There are 11,280 golf courses and private golf clubs in the United States. When you think about the fact that there are about 25,000 continuing care retirement communities across the country, some of these numbers that you'll see here and in some of the future slides represent a comparable market size. What's neat about some of these, like condos and luxury apartment complexes and things like that, is they also have these common areas that are, for all intents and purposes, clubhouse-like. They have business centers, they have model apartments, resort properties, and 55 and over communities as well. So you've got a lot of opportunity to market, obviously all of the lounge furnishings, dining room furniture, even resident room furniture, bedroom furniture, and things like that for some of the models and so forth. Just a reminder over here, I put a couple photos, one of a pub table and one of our bars. Oftentimes, these are overlooked areas on our website, but you can find these in the in-stock section of the website. And these are typically shipped in 3 to 5 days, can really allow you to finish out some of these environments. By the way, these two pictures on the right were taken at an apartment complex my wife and I lived in briefly when we relocated. So it gives you an idea of the types of environments that are out there in some of these communities. We spend a little bit of time here on transitional housing. Our rep, Wendy Warren, who represents Heckman in Washington, D.C., Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware, has really taken a lead on this effort to look for alternate markets. And so she's done a lot of work in sleep centers, transitional housing, and has found a lot of success in that arena. So transitional housing, these are things like women's shelters, homes for at-risk populations, people transitioning from homelessness to the workforce, addiction treatment, mental health, and homeless families in general. This photo you see here and the shop drawings on the top represent a product that was developed as a custom for Washington Housing Authority. They were very concerned about cleanability, very concerned about the ability to eradicate bed bugs and other pests and things like that. So it was very important that the materials used in the construction were cleanable. And so all of these room furnishings were thermal shield laminate. The customization was in the trundle bed that fit underneath. The headboard and footboard was also thermal shield, so it could be cleaned. And then there was an optional storage feature. So where a trundle bed wasn't necessary, there was additional storage underneath, but designed to look like the drawer fronts, or the trundle bed was designed to look like the drawer fronts on the storage units. A very successful project, very large project, funded by the city. And so I bring this up because, don't overlook this stuff. There's an assumption there that these entities lack money. That's not necessarily the case. The funding is there if the solution is the right one and the value is there. So I wanted to be sure to share this with you, just to kind of get you thinking in that direction. There's another category. It's not really transitional housing, but it didn't fit neatly into another category. It's referred to as supportive housing. And generally, these are things like group homes, veterans homes, and general institutional housing. And just like transitional housing, cleanability is key. You have opportunities to sell dining room furniture, and I want to take a moment to plug our clearance program, where we're offering dining chairs and some occasional tables at tremendously reduced prices. This is a good category to present those solutions to, because again, they're trying to maximize their budgets. Living room furniture for common areas and therapy areas and things like that is another point of focus. Kind of along the lines of transitional housing, but very different from a key point of view, is our residential treatment centers. These tend to be the drug and alcohol rehab, detox. We think of things like the Betty Ford Clinic and some of the places that celebrities might frequent from time to time. But these tend to be high-end luxury amenities, pools and spas and workout centers, and they tend to be positioned on beautiful acreage and so on. But you can see by these photos that there's a tremendous effort to make these look not institutional, but residential, trying to get the resident in a certain frame of mind that opens them up to therapy and exploring some of their problems. So it's not just drug and alcohol rehab, it can also be emotional or psychiatric sufferers, and dual diagnosis, which are people who are addicted to chemicals and also have some of the emotional and psychiatric challenges. This photo, again, another plug for Wendy, is a health treatment center in Virginia. So again, you can see where a lot of this furniture fits. A couple sources that I found to be very helpful. Transitionalhousing.org. You'll find that there are over 6,000 locations listed on that website, and it's basically a clearinghouse so that you can go state by state, and they tell you the number of transitional housing units in each state. When you click on the link to each state, it'll pull up that full list, so you can see exactly where they are. It takes you right to the individual websites. In many cases, you can find your contact folks there. You can find images, so you get a sense of the caliber of the quality of the furnishings and the environment in each one. And it really gives you a nice opportunity to find some of those communities and treatment facilities that are near you. The other one that I found helpful is this the treatmentcenters.net. And again, same basic principle. It'll give you all the information on each location. And you can see collectively, we're talking about 18,000 locations. So the magnitude of this market segment is comparable to senior living in terms of the opportunities. But again, frankly, unlike senior living, you have more opportunity to sell into bedrooms and resident rooms and things like that than you often do in senior living, where people bring their own furniture. Another category that offers a lot of opportunity are sleep centers. I captured some screen grabs of the bedroom areas of these to give you a sense of the range from very institutional to extremely residential to almost like a hotel room. But there are also areas here like lounge areas. I noticed a lot of lounge seating, recliners, and things like that in these facilities as well. This is a growing market segment. It's averaging just under 5% annual growth over the last decade. And I think it speaks to the fact that according to the CDC, 1 in 3 Americans suffers from some sort of sleep disorder. It's a $10 billion a year business. And there's about 3,500 sleep clinics nationwide. I was not able to find a good catch-all source for a listing of these locations. So just Google searching is one way to find some in your local area. And obviously a lot of these are tied to the various healthcare providers and hospitals in your area as well. I had a little fun with this, student housing. Student housing represents a big opportunity area for all of us because the reality of student housing today is much different than it was 30 plus years ago when I was in college. And just for fun, I went to my old college and found my dorm that I lived in my freshman and sophomore years, and was not surprised to find that it looked very much like it did when I went there. This might even be the same doggone furniture. There's plenty of that out there still. A lot of older college dorms are the cement brick walls and linoleum floors and cold tile that you see here. But as we're also finding, it has gone upscale in a big way. And that's the photo I showed earlier. That's actually a student housing complex at the University of Southern California. So it shows you just how far we've come. Now, most of these are privately owned and managed and off campus, but believe me when I tell you, they have all the earmarks of resort living. These hammocks around the pool side and cabanas. This is actually a big screen TV, so while your student is lounging by the pool studying, I'm sure, they're sure to not miss the Saturday football game. Just unbelievable architectural gems. These are some shots of some interiors, living rooms and bedrooms. Now, the majority of these apartment complexes come fully furnished. And so that's why they're in this presentation. So again, the numbers are there to support this, and we'll get into those numbers here in a second, but just kind of reviewing some of the areas where Heckman can play. The bedroom areas, obviously, wardrobes, bedside cabinets, the beds themselves, laminate or wood, whichever your customer prefers, living room furniture, accessory tables, accent tables, dining room furniture. We have the, we have the conventional dorm furniture as well for those situations where that makes sense. And of course, we have a variety of options for some of the general areas within higher education, study centers, libraries, even the common areas of some of these apartments. So Heckman does offer some tablet armchairs with or without power, a great solution for a variety of those areas as well. And again, you'll be able to go back and find this presentation on our website, but I wanted to just capture the top 10 housing companies in the student housing arena, and they're listed here. What was interesting to me was that last year alone, there were 50,000 beds added to the student housing market. And that's a pretty consistent number over the last few years. There have been ranging from 35 to, like I said, just under 50,000 a year. So a very active marketplace, great opportunities for Heckman Contract and for all of you on the call. And I encourage you to consider that. Finally, work from home. Again, this sort of back and forth that we're living through is now bringing us all back into the home. And I suspect that this is a condition that's going to apply for a while, certainly in the near term until there's a vaccine. I suspect a lot of companies and various organizations and entities are going to allow some flexibility with respect to work from home. So I wanted to remind all of you that we do have a sit to stand desk called Smart Moves. This can be produced with pretty quick turnaround. We also have a number of in-stock collections that work very well for the home environment, including even some chairs like the one you see here. So be sure to go to that website and look for home office, desks, things like that. It will take you to those sections. And that's it. Any questions? Okay, well, hopefully we gave you something to think about here. If you do have any questions, Feel free to reach out to me. My email address is mhall@heckmancontract.com, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. We do have a question here. Hold on just 1 second. Oh, good info. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. All right, everyone. Have a great day. And we do have this webinar again at 1:30. So if you have someone you know who you think might benefit from participating, be sure to have them register. And also on Thursday, be sure to dial in at 10:30 and 1:30 Eastern time for Diane's presentation on bring your own furniture. Kind of an interesting presentation there in terms of how to counter that whole mindset. So thanks again, and happy hunting.